Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh-Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News, broadcasting live from the Arabiya studios. These are our top stories. The Australian Prime Minister vows to toughen up gun laws after a father and son killed 15 people attending a Hanukkah event on Bondi Beach. Volodymyr Zelensky offers to drop ambitions of joining NATO as Ukraine's top negotiator hails real progress after US talks in Berlin. Media tycoon and pro-democracy activist Jimmy Lai faces life in prison after being found guilty of national security offences in Hong Kong. And the son of Rob Reiner is arrested after the Hollywood director and his wife are found dead in their LA home. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has signalled plans for tougher gun laws after a mass shooting that killed 15 people. Investigations into the incident, which targeted a Jewish celebration on Sydney's popular Bondi Beach and left 40 hospitalised, are ongoing. Our correspondent Jan David has more.
Flowers for those no longer here, and songs of remembrance. Today, members of the Jewish community gathered to pay tribute to those who lost their lives in the worst mass shooting Australia has faced in almost 30 years.
I think today is a very sad day. It's the day that I think we were all dreading in the Jewish community.
We feel absolutely shattered. We feel that we've been abandoned, that we've been struggling to get to a place where we feel comfortable and we feel safe here. We don't feel safe.
It was on this beach that eyewitness video captured the moment shots rang out and police rushed to respond. Officials described the shooting as a targeted anti-Semitic attack. Investigators say they are working to understand the background of the two assailants, a 50-year-old father killed on the scene and his 24-year-old son. Police cordons now surround their home. In the wake of the shooting, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has called for a review of gun laws.
What we saw yesterday was an act of pure evil, an act of terror, an act of anti-Semitism, an attack on the first day of Hanukkah, targeted at the Jewish community. The government is prepared to take whatever action is necessary. Included in that is the need for tougher gun laws.
Funding for physical security for Jewish communities will be extended, Albanese pledged. But senior members of Australia's Jewish community criticised the Prime Minister for not doing enough to deal with anti-Semitism in the country earlier. I'm David, Arabiya English.
We can now speak to Rabbi Dr Jonathan Romain, head of the Rabbinic Court of Great Britain. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Rabbi Dr Romain. It's a pleasure to have you on the show. We just heard from some people in Australia a little bit earlier, but what are your reflections one day after this terrible atrocity which targeted Jewish people attending a Hanukkah event?
Well, you're right to describe it as terrible, and, there's a point where you run out of words, to terrible, shocked, appalling. And actually, when I first heard the news flash, I thought of what happened here in England only a couple of months ago in October in Manchester, where there was an attack on a synagogue, and I thought, here we go again. Unfortunately, this time in Sydney, it was much worse because there were actual deaths. I think 15 it is now, whereas luckily we were spared here in England. But it reminded us of what could have happened had the attacker here in Manchester succeeded, and it reminds us what a near miss we had. So yes, it's a major issue for Australian Jewry, but also for British Jewry, and unfortunately in other countries too. I should expand it, of course, and say it's although Jews are very much in the forefront, there are many other victims of extremism. Certainly in this country, we have many Muslims who are also afraid of what's happening and whose mosques have to have guards outside, just as synagogues here do. So it's, yes, we are being targeted, but it's a problem that's affecting society as a whole. I was very pleased, therefore, that the Australian Prime Minister yesterday said that the attack on Australian Jews was an attack on all Australians, and he went on to say it's an attack on our way of life. And I think Australians would back that. And although we use words like terrible, awful, it's worth remembering that the gunmen were only 2 people, whereas there are millions of Australians who are also greatly saddened and sorrowed by what's happened, not just to the people who died and their families, but also what it says about Australian society.
And you also mentioned there to me about that October attack in Manchester. And I just want you to sort of reflect for me, following this deadly attack we've now seen in Australia, Rabbi, which has killed 15 people, is the Jewish community now extremely nervous? And do you feel enough has been done to tackle anti-Semitism following the October the 7th attacks? Do you think that governments, especially in the UK, because you're living there, have done enough?
Well, let's just also say, before we leave Australia, it is surprising that there wasn't a police presence already at Bondi Beach, and it took 10 minutes for them to come. With a major event and on the back of several other anti-Semitic attacks, it was surprising that there wasn't a police presence, or at least one police car, and if there had been, then the shooters might have been killed or taken out of action much earlier. Here, for instance, we unfortunately do have to have police protection at synagogues, or tomorrow night there's going to be a major Hanukkah candle lighting festival in central London. I will be going. To be honest with you, I wasn't going to because I had other things on, but I'm going to go partly out of solidarity to Australian Jewry, but also to make the point that the gunmen can hurt us, but they can't change us. I want to show solidarity with other British Jews and to say, yes, we have to be alert, we have to be vigilant, unfortunately, but we also mustn't change our way of life. Very important that we don't have a siege mentality, we don't surround our Jewish events and synagogues with barbed wire, and that we keep our hearts and our doors open, because otherwise we are giving in to the extremism rather than fighting it.
So it's really interesting. You say to me you're going to attend this Hanukkah event tomorrow, despite what we've seen happen in Australia. But as life continues, as you've been explaining to me, Rabbi, what does that look like for yourself and for the Jewish community? Will you all be doing things slightly differently in light of what we've seen happen?
Yes, very sadly, that's exactly right. And I think we have to talk about the last 2 or 3 years. Certainly there was a spike, an enormous spike, after the Gaza, Palestine, Israel problems that started in October 23. Triggered, of course, by the Hamas attack on Israel, but then, of course, the Israeli response. And that shows how there's this conflation between British Jews and Israel, as if British Jews are responsible for the government actions of Israel. We're not, of course, but unfortunately that conflation happens. But it also means that, in a sense, because it was a trigger, it meant there was an underlying anti-Semitism already. And you may recall that there had been quite a lot of fears a few years back, maybe 5 years back, when Jeremy Corbyn was leading the Labour Party, and he allowed quite a lot of anti-Semitism to flourish, which, to his credit, Keir Starmer has pushed back. But it just means that there is this sort of underlying current that has been ignited. And certainly Jews in England who were very much at home, very much at ease, feel less so. And we are looking over our shoulder in a way that we didn't before. And that's very sad.
Extremely difficult. But I just want to turn back to Australia, because mass shootings in the country are unusual, and that's all due to the country's strict gun laws that are in place. But the Prime Minister says they are reviewing these laws now in light of what's happened. Do you think this is a positive step in the right direction to protect vulnerable communities?
Yes, I think actually a lot of countries, and this would include America, can learn from Australia. I think what happened is there was a mass shooting in Tasmania in 1996, and as a result of that, Australia introduced some very, very tough gun laws, which is why, thankfully, until now, it hasn't been a problem. Obviously, these people, these two gunmen, got round it, so there are always loopholes, and I think it's right that they protect, that the government tries to reinforce them. I should say, by the way, that I think this is a societal problem, and therefore, although we want the government, although we want the police to take robust action, it's actually up to ordinary citizens to also be vigilant, in the sense that we know that terrorism isn't suddenly born. It develops, and it comes from sort of dark or dangerous words and thoughts, which then morph into dark and dangerous deeds. So if one hears, perhaps in the, friends or maybe even family, voicing things that are really not just unpleasant, but really dark and dangerous, then I think one has a responsibility to report them, because it affects all of us. And, those gunmen, for instance, yes, they were targeting Jews, but they were shooting indiscriminately. They didn't know if they were killing not Jews or just passers-by who were there out of interest or supporting or just enjoying the beach in Bondi. So it's up to all of us. Government, yes. Police, yes. But you and me too.
Yes, absolutely. And we have also all seen the video footage of the hero, Ahmed Al-Ahmed, who tackled the gunman to the ground. He's Syrian-Australian and extremely brave. What do you make of these actions from one heroic civilian?
Well, it's tremendously good news. Firstly, that he intervened, whatever his background, whatever his faith. But I think it's particularly important that he is Muslim, because it just sort of shows that the idea that all Muslims are extremists is nonsense. It's just nonsense, and that's a really good antidote to all those people who might now, because of the gunman, blame Muslims or make mosques feel much more vulnerable. So I think there are three myths we have to counter. One is that Australian or British Jews are responsible for the Israeli government. They're not. They're entirely separate. Another is that all Muslims are extremists. They're not. And another is that Jews and Muslims are at war with each other. We're not. We have to tackle those three myths, and that will take away some of the fodder that feeds the extremists and the terrorists.
Rabbi Dr Jonathan Romain, I really appreciate your time, and I wish you well, and I hope your event also goes smoothly tomorrow. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Let's take a look at some of the other stories making the headlines today. A person of interest detained after the deadly shooting at Brown University will be released after police said there isn't enough evidence to charge them. Authorities say the investigation is ongoing and they are now looking into a different direction. 2 people were killed and 9 others injured in the attack on the Rhode Island campus on Saturday. The US ambassador to Turkey and special envoy to Syria, Tom Barak, is meeting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today. Barak, who also serves as envoy to Lebanon, arrives amid US warnings of a potential Israeli strike on Hezbollah in Beirut if Beirut doesn't disarm the group. Chile has elected far-right politician Jose Antonio Cast as its next president, winning over 58% of the vote. Cast campaigned on crime and immigration, promising tougher security measures and strict deportations. His win marks Chile's biggest shift to the right since the end of military rule in 1990. And US actor and wrestling star John Cena has officially retired from the ring after a 24-year career. The 48-year-old said his body was screaming for a break. He will remain with WWE as an ambassador under a new 5-year deal. Now let's take a quick look at the top business news. China's factory output growth slowed to a 50-month low, while retail sales posted their worst performance. In a sign of further strain, annual car sales slumped by 8.5%, the steepest decline in 10 months. Beijing economists said November data is due to a weakness in domestic activity, largely because of low fiscal spending. The US firm behind the Roomba smart vacuum cleaner iRobot has filed a bankruptcy protection after facing competition from Chinese rivals. The tough commercial landscape had forced iRobot to cut its prices and make major investments in new technology. The company was valued at over $3 billion, but is now worth around $140. Turning to all the sports news now, Liverpool captain Virgil van Dijk says the club is united after Mohamed Salah returned to the squad for Saturday's win over Brighton. Salah came off the bench for his first Liverpool appearance since claiming the team had thrown him under the bus. Today, the forward joins the Egypt national team for the Africa Cup of Nations and could miss up to 8 Liverpool games if his country does go on to the final. And Manchester United's head coach Ruben Amorim says criticism from players is to be expected because the club is unachieving. Amorim revealed he is the one who suffers the most from the club's defeats. United go into their Premier League game today. A win would keep the club in a top 6 for a second consecutive week. Media tycoon and pro-democracy campaigner Jimmy Lai has been found guilty of national security offences in Hong Kong. The 78-year-old, who is also a British citizen, has been in jail since December 2020 and could face a life sentence. Speaking in London, his son Sebastian Lai maintained his father's innocence, pushing for his release and asking the UK to improve relations with China. Take a listen.
The reason why I'm here is to free my father, and in order to do that, the UK government has to do more. We've been very grateful of the support. You would have seen the statement from our Foreign Minister, Vet Cooper. But now it's time to put action behind words and make my father's release a precondition to closer relationships with China.
So let's go live now to our correspondent, Patrick Falk, who can join us from Hong Kong, and he can tell us all the latest about the story regarding Jimmy Lai. Patrick, what did the court say in delivering this verdict today?
Well, it was a damning verdict, and the court said that there was indisputable evidence that Lai had conspired with others to undermine China's national security. They also said that there was no doubt that his ultimate goal was to bring about the downfall of the Communist Party, despite it carrying the cost of sacrificing the interests of the people of Hong Kong. It was an 855-page court verdict, not surprising given the fact that this was a marathon trial, the most high-profile use of Beijing's national security law, and a case that has really raised questions about room for dissent in the city. And remember, Lai has been detained since 2020. This trial didn't begin until late 2023. There have been repeated delays, a lot of concerns about that. Importantly, he was found guilty on all 3 charges, 2 charges of conspiring with foreign forces and 1 count of sedition. He hasn't said whether he will appeal or not yet. That will have to wait until sentencing, which is expected in January.
And Patrick, I remember working and covering the pro-democracy protests that happened 4 years ago in Hong Kong. And at the time, it was front page news. And what sort of reaction has there been to what we've heard about Jimmy Lai today?
Yeah, well, this was certainly very much anticipated by global media. And there was really a media scrum outside the courts today. But Beijing has welcomed the verdict and said that this is a stern warning to anti-China forces. Hong Kong's police chief also said that justice was served. It's got to be said that his supporters weren't optimistic. This was very much the expected outcome. And critics have said that this was a sham conviction and said it's an example of political persecution. There's also been concern about his deteriorating health. We heard a little bit about that a moment ago. His children talked about it last week, talking about how he has lost weight dramatically and lost his fingernails, and he has rotting teeth as well. The government here, though, has denied any mistreatment and also said that he has received appropriate medical care.
And Donald Trump has actually talked about securing Jimmy Lai's release. How likely is this?
Yeah, well, this is one of the things that's made this case particularly difficult in terms of how the judiciary has handled it, because there have been accusations of interference on both sides. Critics are accusing, say that judges have been pressured by Beijing. They say that about the national security law being one of the biggest problems about it. But yes, there's also been criticism towards Western governments and to the US in particular for intervening, so to speak. We know that President Trump spoke to Chinese leader Xi Jinping about this case when they met earlier this year, and he has previously said that he will do his best to secure his release. People have said, though, that it's unlikely that something like this would happen, given that Jimmy Lai is one of China's most vocal critics. It is a key target for Beijing in its national security legislation. And so it seems very unlikely indeed that any sort of deal can be made in this instance.
Patrick Falk in Hong Kong, as always, thank you so much for joining us. Ukraine's top negotiator has described today's talks with the US in Berlin as constructive and productive. Zelensky has offered to drop ambitions of joining NATO in a bid to end the war with Russia. Over the weekend, US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said a lot of progress was made on a new proposal. Meanwhile, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas says Europe faces a very important week as plans to use frozen Russian assets continue to stall. Take a listen.
We have different options on the table, and they will be discussed in the leaders' meeting on Thursday. What President Costa has said, we will not leave the meeting before we get the result, before we get the decision on the funding for Ukraine. The most credible option is the reparations loan, and this is what we are working on. We are not there yet, and it is increasingly difficult, but we're doing the work. We still have some days.
For more on this, I'm joined from Vienna by former Austrian MP, Dr. Harald Troch. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Doctor. Let's talk a little bit about the diplomatic push that's been going on, and it's obviously continuing to reach a peace deal between Ukraine and the US and Russia, apologies. So talks have ended today. We're hearing positive signals out of the US-Ukraine talks, but is real progress being made, or do the main sticking points just remain in place?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I think talking, meeting, trying to fix deals is always a progress. I'm very happy and I welcome the initiatives of US President Trump, though there are very critical opinions about Mr. Trump here in Europe, but his initiatives for peace are really a great contribution in global politics.
And it's really interesting that you talk about Donald Trump there, because obviously he has been pushing and pushing for the end. A deal still seems a long way off, but Zelensky has hinted that Ukraine's ambition to join NATO appears now to be off the cards. What alternative plan will be put in place to ensure Ukraine's future safety?
Well, of course, the United States will have a special responsibility here. The European Union and NATO without the United States is much too weak to guarantee any securities. This is just a realistic approach.
And the EU is actually moving closer to using tens of billions of dollars of frozen Russian assets to finance a massive loan for Ukraine. Are we likely to see European countries agree to release this money?
Well, of course, you talk already about the political frame of the whole thing. What does this step? It's actually it's a confiscation of foreign money. What does this mean for the political unity of the European Union? Fact is that now, at this moment, at least 5 member states of the European Union are critical or they reject the confiscation plans. These countries are Belgium, Italy, Slovakia, Hungary and Bulgaria. Maybe there are already more. Now, the political unity of the European Union is quite at stake and in a critical situation. I think it's very, very risky from Madame von der Leyen to push a measurement that, again, is a rift, a serious rift in the unity of the European Union.
Harald, I want to ask you a question because, you know, Donald Trump came out last week and he criticized the European Union about not moving quick enough, about having talks about talks. And it was quite an interesting point of view that he did put across about the EU. And many people have said that the EU has acted very late. And I spoke to a Ukrainian MP last week who said to me that these frozen assets are absolutely crucial for Ukraine as they're running out of money and they keep on needing to defend themselves. And that money should be theirs to rebuild the country. What do you say to that argument where Ukraine right now is on the back foot and does need financial help?
Yeah, but on the long run, only the United States are capable of satisfying the military and the financial needs of the Ukraine. The European Union is not capable of that. France itself is in a critical financial situation. The United Kingdom has reached its ceilings of financial giving. Only Germany still has financial reserves to do more. But as well, on the military level, equipment, ammunition, artillery, security of the space, the European cannot guarantee and cannot deliver actually more. So Europe is actually at the fringe, at the edges of its possibility to assist the Ukraine. And there's already quite, in Europe itself, in European member states, quite a resistance against too much assistance of the Union countries for the Ukraine. It's regarded by many people as lost money.
And reports are suggesting the US is insisting Ukraine should withdraw from the Donetsk region. Is this something European leaders would support? And what do you make of the diplomatic tussle between the EU and the US right now?
Well, for me, it's a fact that there are differences between the United States and the European Union leadership. There are differences according to, for instance, free speech and democracy, where the United States, the president and the vice president, again and again criticized the European Union countries for limiting freedom of speech. On the other hand, Europe has lost the importance, and the United States are not willing anymore to pay too much money, too much resources into military security and military equipment of the European Union. Donald Trump demanded in his late presidency already, the European Union has to contribute more for its own security. But hardly any country raised its budget for security. And now there is a security problem in Europe. So I must say, Mr. Trump was right 7 years ago, when he demanded that Europe has to do more for its own security.
And just quickly, before I let you go, we are getting some breaking news lines in, which I think are really interesting, and I just want to put to you. A US official has been speaking, and he said 90% of issues have been solved between Russia and Ukraine. The official also said, we are prepared to go to Russia if needed. So 90% of issues solved between Russia and Ukraine, according to this US official. Is that a positive sign?
It's absolutely positive. The first positive sign is already that there are talks. People talk to each other. The West has to talk to Mr. Putin, and Trump is here really a great chance for achieving a compromise for peace in the Ukraine.
It was brilliant to have you on, Dr. Harald Troch. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening. The son of Rob Reiner has been arrested after the Hollywood director was found dead in his home in LA alongside his wife, Michelle. 32-year-old Nick Reiner is being held on a $4 million bail whilst in police custody. Authorities were called to the couple's house on Sunday afternoon and have been treating the incident as a homicide. Rob Reiner is best known for directing movies like When Harry Met Sally and also A Few Good Men. For more on this, I'm joined by entertainment journalist Stephanie Takyi. Stephanie, it's great to have you on the show. So Rob Reiner's son Nick has been arrested after the deaths of the Hollywood director and his wife. What more do we know?
Well, Leigh-Ann, all day long there have been headlines swirling that there had been this family that was being questioned by the LAPD, but their identity hadn't been confirmed. But just this evening, it's been confirmed that Nick Reiner is currently on bail, a $4 million bail in connection to his parents' murder. You know, it's one of those things where publicly it's well known that he's had a strange relationship with his parents due to his drug addiction. He's had many periods of stints of homelessness as well. But, you know, many people in the media thought this was all water under the bridge, where him and Rob came together to produce a a film together called Being Charlie, which was loosely based off his experiences. But sources have said that over the past few days, Nick had moved back into the family home, and it appears that this crime he is alleged to have committed happened due to a heated argument.
Absolutely tragic events that occurred. But Stephanie, we've also heard from President Donald Trump. He's been on Truth Social discussing the death of Rob Reiner. What has he had to say?
Well, Leigh-Ann, there was really no love lost between the pair, and sadly, even in death, it seems it's still the case. Well, on President Trump's side, because he put out a statement saying that Rob had died due to his syndrome called TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, and due to the anger he caused people around him due to his obsession with the Republican Party. Rob, of course, was a staunch Democrat. He was very much a part of the liberal movement in America. He has been one of Trump's staunchest critics, but I think for many people in the public, it is a low blow for Trump to be associating his murder with politics. I think there is a place for politics, and it's definitely not after someone's death, sadly.
And Rob Reiner was a legendary Hollywood filmmaker and also an actor. He appeared in Wolf of Wall Street. What is his legacy, Stephanie, going to be? How will we remember him?
Well, when we think of film and when we think of comedy, especially romantic comedies, Rob Reiner was behind many of those, many of our cherished moments that a lot of film fans worldwide will remember. So I think he's going to be remembered for delivering millions of laughs for people worldwide. And I think, at a time where comedy is being heavily policed, I think his work will now stand the test of time. And just due to how tragically he died, we just hope that in time, people remember all the laughs he did provide. And I think he was definitely one of the critically acclaimed Hollywood directors. So I think it's one of those things where it's a big loss to the industry. I think he had much more to go in his career, and I think it's just really sad that it's been cut short.
And can you also just tell us about some of the tributes that have been pouring in for Rob?
Well, one president who was a fan of Rob was President Barack Obama, who said that, beyond all of the stories that Rob produced, it was due to his commitment to see the goodness in humanity, and he always put that action into belief. So President Barack Obama paid tribute to him. Jamie Lee Curtis has been left devastated. She was quite close friends of the couple, and she says that her and her husband have been left in shock about the violent way that they were murdered. And she says that their priority now is to provide support for the family and to see them through this difficult period. And also, Kathy Bates, who starred in that incredible thriller he produced, Misery, has said that he was a very kind and brilliant man, and he was able to work in all kinds of genres and film, and that was just a testament to his talents. And also, Eric Idle, British comedian and actor, said he was just on the phone to Rob last night. And he said, well, not last night, but the night before, and he said that literally they were on the phone for an hour, and he said that he'll be terribly missed.
Stephanie Takyi, extremely tragic circumstances surrounding the death of Rob Reiner. Thank you so much for speaking to me this evening. A reminder of our top stories. The Australian Prime Minister vows to toughen up gun laws after a father and son killed 15 people attending a Hanukkah event on Bondi Beach. Volodymyr Zelensky offers to drop ambitions of joining NATO as Ukraine's top negotiator hails real progress after US talks in Berlin. Media tycoon and pro-democracy activist Jimmy Lai faces life in prison after being found guilty of national security offences in Hong Kong. And the son of Rob Reiner is arrested after the Hollywood director and his wife are found dead in their LA home. And that's all from us on W News. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Of course, follow us on X, and we'll be back in a couple of hours' time with W News Extra. Goodbye, and thank you for watching.